So now we're recording. Awesome. First, I would like to introduce myself properly. My name is Jacob Westberg, and I'm a music producer. And I'm currently studying a master's degree at the Royal College of Music in Stockholm, where I'm mainly interested in video game music and how music has a relationship with game design. So that's why I reached out to you, Sebastien, because you work with video games and you are a music producer. Well, first of all, I've written a short biography on you, and I would like to read it to you and see if there's anything that you might disagree with or anything you would like to add. Is that okay with you?
Sure, yeah.
All right. So, Sebastien Najand is a composer and music producer currently based in Los Angeles, but he was born in France and started creating music at a very early age. When he was 12, he moved to USA, where he would find himself inspired by both electronic artists such as The Prodigy and Chemical Brothers, and also film composers like Hans Zimmer and James Horner. His inspiration led him to study music production at the California State University in Long Beach, where he graduated with a bachelor's degree in 2012, and he has been working with music professionally ever since. In 2014, he became part of the composers team at the company Riot Games, which develops the multiplayer game called League of Legends, which has had over 100 million monthly active players during the year 2020. Sebastien is usually involved with scoring the theme for the World Championships that is held annually by Riot Games, and also works with different projects surrounding the in-game characters. He currently holds the role as a principal composer at Riot Games, and his latest release with the League of Legends alternate universe pop group KDA has within 1 week gathered more than 77 million streams on Spotify alone. I haven't checked the other streaming services. But Sebastian's work with the League of Legends franchise is not everything. He has produced and orchestrated music for films, TV series, and commercials. For instance, the HBO series Game of Thrones, and he has also collaborated with artists, most notably with the Grammy Award-winning rock group Muse. That's a lot of things that have happened in the last 8 years.
Yeah, and it's yeah, everything you're saying is mostly true. I think for the Game of Thrones, it's more of a. I did something for Muse. You know, they made an album of songs inspired by Game of Thrones.
Right. Yes.
And Muse did one track for that. So I didn't actually work on the show itself.
Okay. I see.
I just did some orchestration production for
I
Muse
see. Okay.
In that sense.
But if I'm not mistaken, you have made scoring for films and moving pictures.
You know, for film, I've only done a couple student films.
Okay. Got it.
Early on.
All right.
But since then, I mean, I've done some TV show stuff. Pretty much just one TV show, which was a show called Revolution a few years ago. So I was working under Chris Leonards, who's the main composer. Okay. So I did a couple of cues for that. Yeah.
I see. All right. Well, before we get into the main gist of what I'm researching, I would like to know more about how you describe your musical style and your musical background. So how would you describe your musical style?
My style, yeah, it's hard to describe. I think, so I've worked on multiple styles, multiple genres. So from just orchestral, pure orchestral to purely, you know, electronic and things like that. So, and like you mentioned, and I've been influenced by both electronic artists and film scoring artists. Yeah. So I guess stylistically, I tend to like very hard-hitting music, very in-your-face music, as opposed to introspective music. So that tends to be what I tend to work on. And part of it is just by luck. It just happens to be projects like that. Okay. Lately, I've been mostly focusing on production work, more kind of pop, electronic production work, as opposed to orchestral and acoustic. So even though my influences were both electronic and film, at first I was doing more orchestral things.
Okay.
So during high school, on my own, I was kind of learning about samplers, different DAWs, all that stuff. I was kind of messing around with, trying to create a realistic orchestral sound, things like that. And then when I went to school, to college, I went there for composition. So it was mostly about, music theory, harmony, how to notate things properly and all that stuff. And during that time, I was still learning on my own kind of production side of things. And then gradually, when doing work for Riot, it started off as mostly orchestral as well. But since Riot kind of has started doing a lot of songs for different events and different purposes, I've started to do more and more of that, which also fit with what I liked, because early on, when I was much younger, I really liked pop song and pop music and electronic music. So it really fit with something I've always wanted to do, but never really had a avenue to do it. So, and then gradually over the years, it's like you mentioned, I've worked a lot on the championships every year for the openings. The last couple of years, I've done less of that. So it's been other composers on the team doing that. And I've been focusing more on kind of the big song events like the alternate reality, KDA projects and all those. So yeah, it's been a gradual shift towards modern just pop production as opposed to orchestral production.
Right. It sounds like the way you explain it right now, it sounds like you sort of, that's your first kind of inspiration, pop music and more song oriented. So have you traced it back? Like what is your first inspiration like that?
Way back in I was, let's see. It really was The Prodigy and Chemical Brothers. Those two groups were a big influence when I was really young. And I also was into regular pop music. When I was really young, I was into Spice Girls and all the Britney Spears and all those kind of pop songs from the mid to late 90s. So that was kind of and throughout the 2000s, I've always kind of kept up with pop music, but my intention definitely went more on the orchestral side. Even when I was really young, I think the Hans Zimmer was the first kind of, specifically the score for The Rock that he did with Harry Gregson Films. That was a big influence on me.
Not just
oh yeah, and not just the orchestral side, but there's also there's some electronic things in there, from Crimson Tide, that whole big orchestral sound. Of course, I also liked, James Horner was a big influence. John Williams, but Hans Zimmer is kind of there's that blend of technology and orchestra that I've always been into. I'm really into technology, computers and what's the latest plugin or software that's out there. So that really kind of inspires me as well. So it kind of, it's been, hand in hand over the years. The technology and aspect has always been there.
I'm interested in knowing how you landed a position in the gaming industry, because it seems like you were very much oriented toward film and that thing. But what made you take that step, and what events led there?
Yeah, so like you're right. My goal was more of a film. I didn't really have a super strong goal where I wanted to do music, what I wanted to do music for, but I knew it had to do with something. It had to be for something, as opposed to just for myself. So I don't really do music just for myself. But it started, so after I graduated college, one of my professors told me about an internship at Hans Zimmer studio. It's most specifically for Henry Jackman, who had a studio in Hans Zimmer's, I think he might still have a studio there, in Hans Zimmer's kind of complex. So I did a 5-week internship there, which was the basics. Just getting coffee for people and sitting in on sessions and so no music making at all, just simple things. So I did that for 5 weeks, and then after those 5 weeks, I did a 5-week internship for Hans Zimmer, Same thing, basically.
Okay.
So I didn't really have that much interaction with them,
Mm-hmm.
but same thing, helping with the, getting people coffee. When they have sessions, I would get them the food orders and all that stuff. So that kind of, I didn't really do any music at all at that point, but it was really great to see people work on music and sitting in on some composers working and seeing them use their software and all that stuff in different ways. And during that time, someone who worked for Hans Zimmer, who was the sampler department lead so he ran the department that creates all the samples for Hans Zimmer. Okay. His name is Sebastien. So I started doing a little bit of work for him at the same time. So I would do some editing of some samples that they were recording, a little bit of that. So I did that at the same time as doing the regular kind of intern duties. So I was there for about a year. At some point, he left and went to work for Cinesamples, and he became their sampler manager. And then he told me about an opportunity to work there.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I really enjoy working with him, and I didn't really see myself staying at Hans Zimmer studio. It was totally fine, no problem, but I didn't really, it wasn't, it didn't feel like the something I wanted to pursue at the time.
Okay.
So I went for the Cinesamples route. So I did some work on editing samples for them and on a lot of their libraries. And at the same time, Cinesamples has a sister company called Hollywood Scoring that does a lot of music services in LA. So they do a lot of music contracting work, orchestration work, composition work. So a client can call them and ask them, we need music for this or that.
Yes.
So in 2012, when I joined, that was about the same time as Riot had contacted Hollywood Scoring to do some work for them. And the first thing I worked on was the season 2 opening ceremony for the championship.
Okay.
With another composer, Alex Temple, who's also at Riot now. So,
okay.
So I worked on that a little bit. Then I did more work for Riot, some in-game music work. And gradually, at some point, Riot felt that it was a good idea to have us as contractors work on site at Riot. So we're still employed by Hollywood Scoring, but we're working on site with them. So it's a much better communication. We're not really working through someone else, so we can talk directly to developers and people like that. So we did that for a few months, and then gradually it just made sense to move over to Riot. That's all we were working on. It was going really well. So in 2014 it was the official move to Riot, and then I've just been at Riot ever since.
Okay. And as I can tell from your LinkedIn profile right now, you hold the position as a principal composer, and I don't really understand that term. So could you explain what the principal composer does for
so basically, for a while at Riot we had no titles, it was just composer. And then because of the how in the industry of more tech industry, you kind of have titles kind of assigned to you in various ways. So for a principal, I guess that there's a point where you start as a associate composer, for example, regular composer, then senior composer, and after senior you have kind of two options. You could go into management, where you go and start managing people and go more of that route.
Okay. And
then the other way is if you want to keep focusing just on the craft, then you go to the principal route. So I didn't really want to go into management or that at this point. So principal was the next step. So I mean, we all kind of do similar things, all the composers. So we have I think one mid composer, we have a few senior composers, but we all kind of do similar things. So and we're all kind of learning from each other all the time. So it's not really, I'm not really telling another composer to do things or that. It's more I think based on experience and some of the projects we've worked on and things like that. That kind of changes the titles.
I see. Okay. Which brings me to the next question that I'm interested in is because of how big the franchise has become, and I'm thinking of League of Legends, with all the in-game characters, with all the stuff that's happening around it, and the world championships that's been held every year, and I mean, there doesn't seem to be a limit of what this ship is about to do here. So how is the music being directed, and like who makes the decisions for, we should try this thing out, and we should try to make a project with a alternate universe pop group? Like where does those decisions or conversations happen?
So back in the day when we were really small, so for a while it was just one person, Christian Link, who had hired me and Alex Temple. It was just us three. So League, like you said, has gone much bigger. Back then it was smaller, so we were kind of doing everything ourselves. And ideas come from different teams, you know, from the character development design team.
Okay.
It can come from the esports team. They have an idea of what to do for an opening ceremony. It can come from the kind of IP development team to have an idea for a cinematic or things like that. Or even from us, we might have an idea of, we really want to do a music project for this.
Okay.
And it's still similar to this day. Of course, today is much bigger. So you have League is much bigger now. We have other games in the works. So each game, they have their own departments that have ideas and how to do things. So it's still generally flexible, like it was in the past, but it's bigger. So we can't just when we want to do something, we have to talk to a lot more people now, just to make sure, you know, does it fit with another strategy of another product? Are we putting ourselves in a corner if we do something now? So there's a lot of more things to be aware of. But for example, the Project Pentakill, which is the metal band project that Christian Link led, I think it came from he just wanted to do a metal album.
Really?
And back then, you know, League was smaller, so it was easier to do things like that. And now it's, you know, it's bigger, and it's had 2 albums so far. And also, you know, with that idea, other teams have ideas of like, okay, let's do it again this year, and we'll have more character outfits and skins and things like that. It kind of starts a bunch of ideas and it kind of. But when it comes to music direction itself, it varies from our own direction. Like on KDA, creatively, the ideas of the musical ideas it came from me. So I've decided, okay, I want to try this harmonic language here, or I want to try this style. Of course, we have a small core group of people, and we talk about it, and we see do we vibe with it and things like that. For things more like a cinematic, where you have director, you know, the director will have more input on you know, will be more of a director role. So yeah, it varies from also working with a designer, champion designer. You might have you might talk to him or her, and then you'll get some ideas from them, and then you'll try some stuff, send it back to them, and they'll have some thoughts. So we also inspire each other. You know, the art team and the music team. You know, we talk to each other. So it's there isn't really a set way to do things. It's generally flexible. Yeah.
So the communication you have with the development team isn't necessarily that important for you to create musical ideas for the, it sounds like from what you're saying.
It depends.
Right.
For something like KDA, it's not really important.
Right. Okay.
For something like a champion theme, character theme, that's a lot more important, because the design of the character, what is the character about, all that stuff. How do they play in game? Are they an aggressive type of character, or are they? What is their play style? Can influence how we approach the musics. Also, I mean, it's on. So by development team, I also mean, you know, the narrative team that writes the story of the character, and the arts, all that stuff does play a role in the music.
Okay. So how does what kind of facility are you working in? Like, because it seems like you sort of have to be pretty close to each other to be.
Yeah. So I mean, right now with quarantine, you know, with the virus, we're all at home. But before that, we have so at the Riot campus, we each have our own sound rooms. So we have a big area of maybe 20 or so sound rooms, or there's composers and sound designers, and then other games have different places in the building with their own sound rooms. So yeah, we have our own sound rooms, soundproof and all that stuff. So but we're all really close to each other, so we can all come out and go to someone else's room listen to something, or I can call any of the composers and show them something right away and get feedback.
Okay. And do you mingle with the, like, in other parts of the campus, Riot campus? Like you take a trip out to the game develop, or like the art section, or like, is that somehow managed, or is that spontaneous?
No, it's spontaneous. We also have meetings that get set up, so we do meet other people through meetings, but most of it is spontaneous, and we go out to get coffee, and then we'll see other people and talk to them. And we are generally kind of isolated. We're at one corner of the campus.
Okay.
We're almost maybe the only people in the company with rooms.
Okay.
Because it's an open office kind of layout.
Oh, yeah.
So most people work next to each other, in an open office. For us, we're kind of in our room. So we're a little bit secluded in that sense, and we kind of have to. But yeah, we do mingle with other people, and I mean, it's a very relaxed. We can go anywhere, and we could go talk to anyone, at any point.
Cool.
Or let's say I have an idea of like, oh, by the way, I'll chat with an artist, and here's something that I'm working on, or can I have the latest version of the art for this character, and they'll send it to me, or they'll stop by with some ideas, and so yeah, it's a very very natural collaborative environment.
Okay. How invested are you in, like, learning about all the characters, and because of how important it seems to be for expressing the characters musically, you seem to be it seems very important that you know what the characters are about, and their backstory, like you say, and their artwork. Like, how do you work on that?
Yeah, it's very important. And I tend to, when I work on a character, those are the characters that I learn about the most. So I know all the characters in League of Legends to various degrees. So, but some I know a lot more just because I've worked on them. But yeah, I mean, knowing everything about them is so important. The story behind them, because you wanna have as much information before you start composing. So having an idea of who they're about, where they're from in the world of League of Legends. So the region of where they're from is important.
Right.
If they're from a region called Freljord, which is our cold region, that would influence what instruments we use. If they're from, and on top of that, they might be from the cold region, but let's say, but they were born here, and they're really about this, and this is what they really believe in, then we might use some elements from that region musically, but then we will alter it so it fits the character more. Also, like the way they play in games, so we'll watch game footage, or we'll play the game ourselves in beta to see what the character feels like. That also influences. It might influence how we approach the music, and of course, the art I think is super important. To me, I think probably I might see a lot of the descriptions, verbal descriptions, but for me, once I see the art, it's much more descriptive thing, influence on me. So once I get the art, that's usually when I start having some ideas, more concrete ideas in my head of like, okay, here's what they look like, and I'll kind of respond to it musically and try to make it fit. So you're still kind of scoring in a way, but to a still picture or to or story or something like that. So there's different ways that we've approached making music for them.
Right. Yes. Do you use like melodic themes and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, we have some. So for every character, we write a theme pretty much. So that includes melodic things. That includes also maybe the production of it. So let's say if we have a character that has a theme, and there is an alternate reality, a skin for that character that needs music for something, then we'll probably use that theme in a way and kind of make a variation on it or make it sound a bit different.
Okay. So
we do try to reuse themes when possible to just keep things cohesive, because we have so many champions, so many things that if we had there's a balance, I think, between different themes, different things for everyone, and also keeping things cohesive in a way. Right. So it feels like the world of League of Legends is very varied. There's a lot of alternate reality, a lot of different characters that look very different from each other, from different parts of the world. So there's it's kind of it's a little tough sometimes to keep everything together. But
I was wondering about that. How do you have a system of keeping track of all the themes and something like that?
Yeah, so we have a kind of a database of all the things we've done.
Okay.
So we have all that available to us. We also have kind of guidelines of what each region of the world sounds like, loose guidelines. So in this region, you know, it's more they're more about this. The people there are more these kinds of people, and these are some of the instruments that we use, or these are some of the things to avoid, for example, or between this region and that region. They could be easily interchangeable, but here are the main differences between the two. So things to keep in mind, and they're generally loose because we want to be able to have something unique for the specific characters, but it kind of helps us. It does help us kind of stay kind of focused in what it's supposed to be. Also, it helps us a lot when we work with outside partners, you know, contractors.
Oh yes.
Where we'll, you know, especially if they haven't worked on the game yet. We'll have those lists of things of here's all the music we've done for that kind of that region or that champ or that character, and here's kind of the description, and then it kind of helps us.
Wow. It seems like you use a lot of like pop artists or like artist figures from outsourced from the company. So how does those projects start, and how does those get maintained and managed?
So like, for example, so you mean like for KDA and things like
KDA,
that?
yes.
Yeah, for KDA, for example, the goal was to, since it's pop music and K-pop and a little bit of electronic mix, we wanted to have, I mean, vocal is super important, and we wanted to have kind of the kind of talent and influence and reach that some pop artists kind of provide.
Yes.
So that was a decision that was made early on. So for pop stars, we have the original roster of singers, and for the KDA2, for the one this year, we knew we wanted to go back. So we already had a relationship with them, and we had, you know, all that was already established, so we were able to go back and work with them again. But yeah, for the other songs, we had new artists that we reached out. So every time we reach out to an artist, you know, first we need to tell them about what is League of Legends, and what is KDA and all that. It's a lot of things to explain. So we go through a lot of that to show them what is the world of League of Legends. If we work with them on the opening ceremonies for a song for the championship, we show them what the championship is about. Just to make sure, you know, first that they like what we're doing and that they want to work with us, but also that they know what we're trying to accomplish. So it's, you know, we don't just want to tell them to sing something for us, but it's more, you know, here we have this music, but, you know, here's what it's about. So maybe they'll come up with an idea that makes the project better. But yeah, I mean, we maintain those relationships over the years. I mean, it's kind of and we expand relationships. We meet new people all the time. And new possibilities for future projects. Yeah,
I can imagine that you meet a lot of people who are interested in what you're doing. Since, I mean, like I said, you had this year alone, you had I read somewhere at least that you had over 100 million active monthly players, which is mind-boggling, many players. So there's a lot of attention to Riot and League of Legends as a game. But you mentioned something earlier on, that you studied a lot of music theory when you studied at the University of California. And I was interested in how important do you think that music theory is within your company and within the collaborations that you have to sort of navigate through a project and talk about what you're doing?
I think it's very important. I don't think it's the most important. I think the most important thing is someone's ear and their taste. So they might not know how to read music potentially, but if they make good music, then it's great. You know, it's that's the goal, right? The goal is to have a good music that people enjoy. So I think music theory and harmony, those are fantastic tools to have.
Right.
and I personally use it in different ways. Like I don't really go working in a pop song thinking too heavily into music theory. I mean, I know what's happening when I'm doing it, and it does help me in how to communicate with someone that also knows music theory.
I see.
But some artists don't know any music theory, so a lot of times when we work with vocalists, they just do it by ear. They'll listen to it, and they just do it by ear, and they don't know what scale, what mode, or any of that. They're just kind of doing it. And with some other, internally with all the composers, we all know music theory and all that stuff. So we can easily go deep into a song or a piece or anything like that to try to see why it's working, why it's not working, or things like that. So it's very important. I think, it's just another tool, basically, that can be used to, for anything to. I'm not so convinced that it's necessary to make good music. I think it can help. But like, for example, when we look to hire new composers, we do see where they went to school, or if, what education they have. And it does give us an indication of what they might know or what they probably know. But the biggest thing is hearing their demos and seeing, because you could have all the education in the world, and if it's also possible to not do great music.
For sure. So
it's kind of I mean, ideally we want someone who knows some music so we can talk to them and communicate. I mean, it's a tool, a great tool to have.
Yeah,
it's a plus. So I would encourage anyone to learn about music theory, of course.
Right.
Everyone, it's just you just know more about what you're doing. Yeah.
Right. You mentioned earlier that you're working from home right now because of quarantine and the circumstances. So how do you handle the potential lockdowns and stuff like this right now when you're working? How is your setup and work?
I mean, my setup is similar to what it was at work at the Riot campus, and I'm naturally someone who stays at home, so it's not a huge, not a massive difference for me. We do have we do a lot of remote meetings, just like what we're doing right now. So but yeah, I'm pretty much the same setup as at work, and it's a little bit easier in some ways because I don't have to go to. I mean, I live really close to work, but I don't have to. It's good and bad. It's good in the sense that I can just get up and go to work instantly. It's bad in the sense that it's hard for me to stop working. So I can easily work from, I mean, I work long hours at the campus anyway, just because I want to, but here there's no barrier. So I can just, anytime I can just go back to work. So it's good and bad. It's trying to find the balance of the two is something I'm still trying to figure out, but it's been okay so far.
Okay, that's good to hear. It's really it's a really different situation from how it used to be. Now we're sort of forced to solve it. It leads me to ask you about your future, and how do you see, what do you see in the future, and how can anyone who's interested in following you follow you and see what's up?
For me, future is kind of a little open-ended. I mean, I'm still seeing a big future in Riot. So I still see myself at Riot for a while, for a long time. Riot's been great to me, and I've been able to do so many things that have made me happy and grow as a composer. So it's there's a few more projects coming up, at Riot that I'm going to work on. But other than that, it's kind of I don't really have a super long-term goal. I know I just want to keep doing music, and things seem to line up nicely. And after that, fortunately, for me, the future is still Riot. For now, but through Riot, we're able to do so many different styles of music.
Oh, yes.
That I mean, from orchestral to metal to electronic to pop to everything. There's always a way to grow as a composer through Riot. So it's been fantastic. So the future for me is still Riot.
Right. Awesome. I was curious about what instruments you're playing also. Like, I noticed, I looked up your some credits on internet and found like a metal wiki. They actually had Pentakill as an entry there, and I could see that you played djembe on there.
Oh, yeah, I'm not a percussionist. A long time ago, when I was we had an old campus, and Christian Link, who's the main person on Pentakill, was playing some stuff, and he had a drum there, a djembe.
Okay.
I was kind of trying some stuff, and he ended up keeping it in the track.
All right.
But my main instrument is piano. So
I see.
So I was trained as a pianist. So that's been my main. I did play some guitar, occasionally.
Okay.
But piano is the main instrument.
Mm. You also seem to write a lot of, like with KDA, you seem to write the songs as well. Do you sing?
Oh, so with KDA, I don't write I don't songwrite. So I work with songwriters. So with KDA, I do. So the way it usually starts is I'll do an instrumental track.
Yeah.
So I'll pick the pace, the harmonic language, everything, all the sounds, most of them, and then I team up with a songwriter who will then kind of I'll work with him or her to create the song.
Okay.
And then I do all the mixing, all the mastering, and
okay. It's
with,
really
with the help of the team has most of us do a lot of the mixing and mastering. So through that process, we always show each other like for feedback. So we get a lot of feedback from the team of the mixing, but we tend to do it ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really what I'm most impressed with looking at, and I've played League of Legends for several years, and what I'm most impressed with seeing is how the ambition and the vision to include music in so many ways is so, like, it seeps through everything that you see in the game, at least from that side, from my side. So yeah. And I think a lot of game companies could learn from that, because music holds such a strong. I saw it holds such a strong emotional impact on whoever receives it. And I listened to a podcast with Toa Dunn, who is the head of audio for Riot Games Music, I think.
He's the head of Riot Music Group. Yeah.
Yes. Oh yes. Yeah. Okay. I see. And he mentioned that. That was very important to always like push that boundary of what music can be. So, but how was it when you started there? Was there any like hint that was going to be the case? Because Riot Games 2014 isn't what they are right now.
Yeah, it's pretty different. I mean, yeah, when I started, it was there was just one composer before that, Christian Link, and so he was leading all that. And the interesting thing about League of Legends is, since the in-game music, everyone plays pretty much the same map, Summoner's Rift, and everyone plays that. The music in there has changed a few times, but it's generally the same music all the time. So a lot of the music was coming from outside the game. When you logged on the game, you would see the new like an animated picture with music, a theme or something. So right away we started making a lot of musical content outside of the game. And Christian was doing all of it himself, pretty much by himself first. And I think being able to do music, having that extra avenue of doing music kind of almost outside the game, probably enabled us to do more outside the game. So so we started with just champion themes on the login screen. And then so that was like the main thing that people were hearing was through that. Oh, here's a new theme. And then Christian also was very ambitious with music and wanted to, like, he started doing, I think one of the champion themes for Diana had vocals in it. It was more of a song. So that already expanded the sound, because before that it was mostly kind of orchestral, bombastic orchestral music. So that already added vocals to it. And then after that, there was the other champion called Jinx, where he wanted to do a music video. So he had the idea of making a song, and then that started also working with one of the studios that we still work with, Fortiche, who's an animating studio in Paris.
Yes.
So he made that with them. And then we also had the opening ceremonies for the esports happening, where we put orchestra for the season 2, and so it kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger. And in 2014, we wanted to do a song. Let's see what happens for the championship, and we partnered with Imagine Dragons, and we made a song with them.
Yeah.
So that kind of it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we started putting more music in the game too. So now a lot of different characters will have music integrated into their sound effects.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it just gradually happened. I didn't see it get as big as it has now back then, but I was already seeing little things that were happening that now make sense, and how they led to how big music is at Riot. And I think what's great is that their leadership at Riot really believed and still believes in music at Riot. So we had a ton of support from them to push music forward. So it wasn't like they didn't see music as just a side thing. Oh, we just need music for this. It really was something that they believed in, and that allowed us to do bigger and greater things.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a great note to end this thing on, because I really enjoy what the approach and the investment in what Riot is doing with music, and you can hear the quality of everything that goes on with the music in Riot. It's extremely well made, very well made, I think. So on that note, I would like to end this conversation. Do you have anything more you would like to say about what we have talked about here?
Let me think. No, I think yeah, not really. I mean, that's a lot of people oftentimes ask me, how to get into in the industry and games.
Yes.
But it's hard to really give a list. Here's where you go here, then do this, because it doesn't really work that way, I think. But I think the common thread through all the successful people and people who want to get better and better, and that includes all the composers at Riot and everyone, there's that pursuit of perfection, or wanting to really get that ambition, I think, that you mentioned earlier, is very important. And I guess you see that ambition in each composer at Riot. You see it in Riot itself, and being ambitious with music. And I think no matter what background you have or where you go to school, or I think if you have that drive and ambition, I think it'll probably lead to something, you might not expect, but it'll probably lead somewhere really great. Whether you know theory or not, or all that stuff. I think that drive is like the core thing. Yeah. Okay.
Well, and before I quit this, I would like to make a small correction, because of what I've said in a quick I think I said quickly before was that you went to University of California, which is not correct, because you went to the close, California State University.
So the California State University in Long Beach specifically.
In Long Beach specifically, yes. Yeah. So with that said, and thank you so much for taking the time. And I've been so excited to have this moment to speak about this with you.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And
if you have any more questions, please let me know, and I'm happy to have a more conversation.
Yeah. All right. So with that, I will close this recording.